This is Unit 4, Week 2, question number 1. Going over the first battles of the Civil War. What was the result of all of them? Most of them the Confederacy won for the first year. Both sides were horribly unprepared, unaware of how bloody, disgusting, and awful this war was going to be. Whether you wore blue or gray, or none of the above, because the costumes and uniforms were constantly changing. Plus the Confederates stole the Union uniforms half the time. Anyways, so it was blue against blue. But, beginning of the Civil War, first battle of Bull Run. What are they fighting over? April 1861, a railroad junction at Manassas, Bull Run was the creek, just outside of Washington, D.C. The Confederates were led by Beauregard, P.G.T. Beauregard, and Albert Sidney Johnston, and the Union Army by McDowell. Lincoln forced them out. Both sides thought they would win one easily and it would be done. Turned out both sides were horribly unprepared. Civilians went out in carriages to watch the war, like it would be good sport. All of them went back in total disarray, aghast at how horrible this would be. Confederacy won the first battle. What does Lincoln do? Removes his commander. Finds a new commander, McClellan, George C. McClellan. And Lincoln eventually orders him to march on to Richmond, the capital, capture the Confederate capital, all of 100 miles away. Off they go, but before they get there, they get bogged down. Confederacy replaces its commanding at these first battles of 7 days before Richmond, and other ones that they're marching on to Richmond and Seven Pines elsewhere. The Confederates under Robert E. Lee defeat McClellan, who retreats back to D.C. A year later, they fight over the exact same railroad junction in Manassas, outside of Washington, D.C. Second Bull Run. It's Confederate commander Lee, and actually some of his folks underneath him, and his field commander Stonewall Jackson, and he defeats Union Commander John Pope. Lincoln hired a pope and still couldn't get a result. Anyways, so the Confederates have won two battles, two major battles. What do? They go on the offensive into the north. They go up into Maryland to bring the horror of the war into a Union state. Although Maryland was a slave state, they thought maybe it would secede. The Union troops found the battle plans that fell off of a horse wrapped around cigars. McClellan had Lee's battle plans and still narrowly managed to defeat him, and that was it. Didn't chase him. So when Lee invaded the north at Antietam, McClellan was defeated Lee, and Lee then retreated back into the Confederate South. It was the first Union victory, September 1862. The war's been going on for a year. And the horror and disgust and violence of the war shocked the country, the public. But Antietam is the first victory for the Union, or first good news in the war in the East. And that's it from some guy in an Aloha print shirt.